In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 33. Today, we're thrilled and honored to have marketing legend Joe Jaffe on the podcast. You see that QR code there? You can get some Jaffe coin today. You can get Jaffe coin for the next hour. Ritesh.
Yo, wait a minute. We've got an influencer.
We have an actual influencer. We have been aspiring to be an influencer. Like, I got LED backlit shelves, right? we have an actual influencer here.
This is amazing. I didn't realize Jaffe had Jaffe dollars as well. That's so cool. I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it while during the show. This is great.
I know. It's been a while. We've had a couple of weeks off. Yeah. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Very well, very well. How are you? Operation went well and everything is good? You're still with us?
My emergency surgery. I'm still kicking. I didn't get to go to Europe, but I'm still here. So anyway, as we get older, these things happen, I suppose.
I know, crazy, right? I think it's as my youngest son William said to me the other day, Dad, you are getting old.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, kid, if you want to live to see 19, don't say that again, So.
That's awesome. Well, it's great to see you. Let's
bring the man on.
Bring him
awesome.
Go on. Hang on a sec. Here we go. Mr. Jaffe.
Mr. Jaffe.
You were saying there's an influencer on. I was like, where?
Well, there's a rumor that you're not famous, but
Yeah.
Not famous. In fact, you can tell because it says I'm not famous.
So. Oh, it does. It does, in fact. Well, let's flip over here. There's your QR code. Why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself and then tell folks what that thing actually is if they're curious about it.
Yeah, so my story is originally from South Africa. Ended up working for a company called Nando's Chicken Land, marketing employee number 3 in this I basically describe him as Starbucks meets subservient chicken on crack. So premium priced experiential brand with irreverent, provocative advertising. They always say the 3 taboos, never put these in advertising: sex, religion, and politics. And often Nando's would use all 3 at the same time. This was a company that taught me about earned media before earned media. It taught me about interactivity before interactive. Taught me about authenticity before authenticity. Before all of these buzzwords in social media. Moved to the US, worked at Ogilvy, 1997. I started there.
Right in the heart of it, yeah.
A number of other agencies like DMB&B, may they rest in pieces, and TBWA Shire Day. I always say, don't hold it against me, my agency background. Went out on my own, written 5 books, started a few companies. And then when COVID hit, I decided to become a talk show host. Even though I'm a talk show host backside, I'm learning every day how to be a better talk show host. So the QR code that you see on the screen is actually connected to, I was very fortunate enough to be invited to receive a creator coin. So I have my own cryptocurrency called the Jaffe coin. And what that QR code does is it allows people to get 1 Jaffe coin, which is about $7.41 at the moment. When I got it, it was 34 cents.
Wow.
So right now, it's like literally $7.41 for anyone that flashes their smartphone or QR code reader. Again, you're doing it right now.
I'm gonna do it too, brother. Look at this.
And you know what's really cool about it? Because I am all in on the creator economy. I'm all in on the streaming era. Yeah, I use StreamYard for my show as well. Go for it. Here's the cool thing. This QR code is only live between 12 and 1 p.m.
Oh, cool.
Today, Friday, September 17th. So what it's doing is recognizing and rewarding live viewers. And I just think that is so cool.
How did you get into that? Because I know Shankwin's got one as well, doesn't he?
There goes the neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. One Shankman gets it, it's all over, right? Exactly. But how did you get into it, Joe? Because it is fascinating, this whole creator economy that's being built. I was on a thing last week around the metaverse and what's happening with all those different platforms and how creators are using all sorts of things like NFTs, etc. How did you get into this rally thing?
I'm very, very fortunate, and I say I'm humbled and so grateful to have actually been invited to participate. I don't know, I might have been number 20 or 25. I think
Wow.
we're now close to 200. Rally's vision is to have 4,000 by the end of the year, eventually moving to a self-service platform where anyone, any personal brand, any
Can set
artist,
up a
any
coin.
singer can have their own. You got it. What I want to say about this as well,
I am with a Jaffe.
and welcome to the Jaffe economy, expanding economy.
The Jaffe economy, yes.
The Jaffe economy, the Jaffe orange, the Jaffe. Here's a crazy thing about it. I actually wrote in Flip the Funnel, which I wrote 12 years ago. I wrote about what I called universal currency. And I created a vision where every brand would have its own currency. Now, universal currency, meaning Nike would have the swoosh, Coca-Cola would have the ribbon. One program I actually worked on for Stella Artois, their currency was called the chalice.
Wow.
And the idea was, it was called La Société. The idea was currency has obviously a value, and it can be bought and sold and exchanged and held and redeemed and gifted. And the idea is that the one universal unit that could govern advocacy, retention, every marketing element could be this currency, this virtual currency. But I had no idea that it would actually come true and come to fruition in the form of crypto.
Yeah.
And so, like, in a way, like, I'm so happy to be a part of it. And I do believe that every single brand will have its own currency. And just to give you an example, like if you're H&M and you have a currency, just the thing that's so unbelievable about Rally is just by holding coin, you get perks and privileges, not unlike an NFT.
Yeah.
So if you held, let's say, 10 H&Ms, you might be able to get into the store, let's say 15 minutes before anyone else.
Oh, wow.
Or you might get access to to new stock before anyone else. So the membership has privileges idea really does cover and expand. And right now, crypto is just a beautiful digital, but also virtual, but also metaversial way to think about engagement. And that's really, us marketers, we get it, or we should get it. But that's what's really going on here. So that's why I'm like super excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome. Well, I'll leave it up throughout the show. So why don't we dig in? So where what we like to say here, where we like to start, Joe, is in the beginning. So if you could, and you talked about this restaurant you were a part of, and then you came to the States and worked for Ogilvy. Share your experience in those early days. This show focuses kind of that time frame from 95 to 2002, the sort of genesis of the internet, the foundation of all the stuff that we're talking about right now. If you could give us your origin story, right? Talk about how you got into that world and what were the big epiphanies along the way? Just catch us up to how it all started for you.
Well, bitten by a radioactive spider, obviously.
Of course.
But,
actually, it would have been a radioactive chicken at Nando's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, those, the thing about Nando's was because it was peri peri spicy chicken, they would have like customer service posters that would say, "Did we make a cluck up?" or socks that you could buy with chilies on that would say, "Bite me." So,
yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of fun.
So when was the internet playing a part in that? Did you do anything digitally with Nando's?
So I actually helped Nando's get online for the first time. But at the time, we're talking South Africa, 94 through 97, always a little bit behind. But I remember those were the days when the new Netscape Navigator was out, and I would start downloading it at about 9 p.m. at night, and then periodically wake up throughout the night to see how I was going. And invariably at 5 a.m. in the morning, the phone line was interrupted, and you had to start all over again.
I know. Yeah.
I also remember, MIRC chat, and I remember with what was called duplex and single, whatever what the single one was called. But I also remember voice and video for the first time, and just experiencing that moment, that aha moment, when you're like, wait a second, this person's in New Zealand and this person's in Kansas, and it was just the most glorious feeling, knowing that I was at the foot of Africa and interacting and connecting with all of these people. So fast forward, I come to the US. Now I'm working. This is the crazy thing, Ritesh, you of all people, working at Ogilvy. So I'm working on the ultimate of ultimate accounts, IBM brand, the creme de la creme.
Wow.
We were convinced. We didn't actually, and I'm not joking when I tell you, we didn't actually know that Ogilvy had other accounts.
That's how big this thing was.
How snobby we were. We had our own floor. We had our own everything.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was headhunted to go to DMB&B, everyone was kind of courting me to stay at Ogilvy, because then suddenly they all wake up when they're like, oh crap, we're about to lose him. Not that I was anything special. But it's only like HR only wakes up when they know they're going to lose you. It's a different budget.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
And I remember the digital people coming for me and everything. And I was like, I don't know, IBM brand, it's exciting and everything, and I'm like, I believe in it. I've always believed in the digital thing. But I wasn't prepared to commit 100% all in. Now, at the same time, the IBM TV people came, the Joe Pitka people, and they were like, how do you want to work, Shutters on the Beach, LA, Santa Monica. And I turned that down as well, because I didn't already I just didn't feel that my future lay in television, and I wasn't sure about digital.
Interesting.
But when I moved to Chiat Day, that's when I joined as an interactive strategist. And before I knew it, I was director of interactive media. There's always a lot of luck involved. My luck was the media unit was forming what they called connections at the time, when everyone was going through media neutral and channel agnostic and channel neutral. And by definition, I was like the only one left there. So they're like, how do you feel about running interactive media? I'm like, I guess I don't know anything about media. But from that moment on, digital will always be in my veins, in my DNA, so much so that I honestly believe that I used to remove an arrow in my back in order to insert the next sword or knife or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was just like, I remember going to the account people and saying to them and trying to pitch them on Kmart and digital, and they were like, our customer isn't online, and
nobody shops online. Nobody will shop online. I remember those. Yeah,
broadband is and I said, but you could help them get online.
That's right.
You could elevate them and accelerate that move to broadband. You could teach them. I even came up with a concept that I wrote about in one of my books called basically the cyber cafe, where the K of cafe was the Kmart K. And it involved the concept of universal currency, maybe with a K, because the idea was when you shop at Kmart, you earn kind of K bucks, and you can use those K bucks. Here's where it got interesting, not just for product, but actually for one-on-one coaching and workshops. And when would those workshops take place? At the hours of the day and the days of the week when the store was the least busy.
The least busy, yeah.
So we had a whole plan. The account people didn't even take it to the client, And so in a way, it was inevitable that I would leave the corporate world and the agency world and become essentially an evangelist. And I've been there ever since for emerging technologies.
That's fascinating.
So let's go back to Nando's for a second, because I'm intrigued by that to start with, right? Because you know, my middle son, the only hot sauce he uses is Nando's hot peri peri sauce. Like when we ran out the other day, he was sort of like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "There are three other different bottles." No, no, where's the Nando's one? I'm like, "This one's fine." No,
You
no,
buy it
no.
online, by the way. I buy
Exactly.
mine online.
I buy it from Amazon. So you're in South Africa. How the heck did you end up at Ogilvy from Nando's in South Africa? How did that happen?
So, you know, it's such a great story. I mean, because it's so personal for me. So I come to the US, as I say, for all the wrong reasons. I came for love. You know, the way I tell the story, my ex-girlfriend and current wife, you know, and so one day I woke up in South Africa, and Nando's was about to go public. And I was like, you know what, everything in life is a variable except your soulmate or the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. And so I quit. I gave up all my equity, everything. And 3 months later, I was in the US. Now, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I decided the smartest thing to do would be an MBA because, you know, learn the culture, become part of an alumni network. Now, nobody taught me about safety schools and GMAT and everything. So I didn't do very well on the GMAT relatively. and so, you know, brand recognition. I pick, you know, 5 schools that I'd heard of: Harvard, Wharton, Columbia, you know, Kellogg, and NYU.
Love it.
Now, I didn't get into any of them, but why I say it's a beautiful story is, as you would have seen on my Facebook or Instagram this week I started teaching at NYU.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it was one of the most amazing stories to know. Now I'm teaching, you know, graduate students and master's students. And it just gives me so much joy to be able to come back to a school that I wanted to be connected to.
Right.
Who turned you down, right?
No, but they did well to turn me down because you know what I realized? I realized I wasn't ready. I had the book smarts and I had my Nando's experience, but I was still, you know, I wasn't ready yet to contribute what I thought I could have. And I'm actually grateful that I didn't get in because it took me on a different path. Now, the Ogilvy story, here I am. I've got about 3 weeks left of my tourist visa. You know, and I'm in big trouble. Like, I am out the country if I can't get sponsored. And I started going to a bunch of agencies, and I figured advertising sounded good at the time. I tried to get into TBWA because of the connection, never got in. And I started to get a little bit desperate, and desperate times call for desperate measures, but also necessity is the mother of invention. But this is the crazy thing. So what I did instinctively was this entrepreneurial, innovative approach that in retrospect, I realized I took my resume and I turned it into a PowerPoint presentation. And at the time I had all the—
So this is what, 95, 96?
This is 97, beginning
97, right? Okay.
So you've got
You're at the height of the boom. Yeah.
You've got animations and you've got sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I did this little thing, which is whenever I was going for an interview, what I would do is I would visit this new thing called a website and learn everything that I needed to learn about it, and then pull graphics and images, you know, down from their website.
Yeah.
Now,
make it part of your presentation.
The lowest point of that process was I was called back for an interview at Y&R, and I was in an interview with like a whole bunch of people, and they were like all fawning over me, and I said, "So tell me more about the job." And they said, "No, there actually isn't a job. We just heard about your amazing PowerPoint presentation and we wanted to see it." And I just, but you know, Ogilvy believed in me, and it helped me break through. And going back, and you know, I came in with all these Ogilvyisms, and then you know, I kind of spoke about IBM, and the fact that I'd actually done the ability to customize and personalize using digital in a way. It was the perfect of, you know, like what I always say to people. I say, you can't learn about technology, digital, metaverse, whatever, crypto. You can't learn about it from a book, even mine.
No.
maybe except for mine.
Well, hang on.
Well,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
just going to say, hang on.
You got to roll up your sleeves and you got
Got to get into it.
experience
Exactly. Work it, play with it, engage in it. Yeah.
And that became, that became my origin. And to this day,
So now you have a job and you're now staying in America. They sponsored you, I'm assuming, right?
They sponsored me, and eventually I got a green card through my wife. And we became citizens in 2008, and I'm a proud American. I'm a patriotic American, and and this has become my life. And then
Brilliant.
fortunately, it's also, like, as I said, luck, which is eventually when I left Chiat Day, if I didn't have the green card, I would have had to continue in a corporate capacity. But that allowed me to take the entrepreneurial route, and the rest is history.
Well,
so was Tom Carroll over at Chiat Day when you were there, TBWA?
He was on the West Coast.
He was on the West Coast. That's right. Because
I was on the East.
Yeah, he was part of this agency group that started in the 90s. You had that Kirschenbaum and Bond. Donny Deutsch had just taken over from his dad, I think. And then you had Carol Raj Stagliano, Adam Stagliano and Robin Raj and Tom Carroll. And then all of a sudden I turn around and he's now the CEO of TBWA. I'm like, what? Wait, hang on. What happened there? So fascinating.
It's a different world now, as I call it, the future of the advertising agency and other short stories.
Yeah.
They're like haikus or limericks.
Yeah, right. What was the, so talk about when you left Ogilvy and you became, you somehow went from not being into digital, your next job is interactive strategist. So talk about that transition, and then talk about what was it like to work in you're kind of in the height of sort of the internet boom. You're moving into an internet strategy role. Like, just talk about that transition and what it was like working in those days.
Yeah, so at DMB&B, I worked in account management on Ernst & Young, and then I moved over into account planning. The irony is I moved over a whole bunch of disciplines trying to find myself in advertising, and it turns out I didn't belong in advertising, or at least at an agency. But being a generalist taught me a lot. And I would say, now when I look back, if someone had, I remember Joy Marhoff, who was the HR person at Ogilvy, who believed in me. She looked at me and she said, I can't decide whether you'd be a better account executive, right, account management or account planner. But the reality is I would probably fall somewhere between the creative and the account planning role now when I look back on it. But being that generalist taught me so much. And at the same time, I could see, digital, where it fit in, as opposed to it wasn't the first, it wasn't the last, but I understood its importance and its emerging and its rising importance. But I've always been a digital guy. That's the thing. I mean, from my very first, we called it at the time ZX Spectrum. That was at the time of the Commodore 64. And the BBC. I've always been, into computers, like back in the day. And so what happened is as I became more and more a part of it, it just became very natural. Now, in between DMB&B and Chiat Day, I actually worked for, at the height of .com, I worked for an agency, a South African-based agency that at the time was working on online gaming clients. Now, I wasn't comfortable with being close to the online gaming industry. I guess if I had been, I would be a billionaire today. But I just, ethically had concerns. But what I did do was open up a New York office for them. And my mandate was diversify, just in case it didn't work out. It did work out for them, God bless them. But it gave me the incredible opportunity to immerse myself fully. I had a budget that I could go to all these Jupiter conferences and web marketing.
Gosh, remember those Jupiter conferences?
And I would just walk around like a kid in a candy store and connect with these people and swap business cards. And that's also how I met Media Post and started writing for them. So it was a moment where, I try and tell it to people now, even like when we talk about Clubhouse, which is the power of listening and learning and immersing yourself. Like I've really realized, even now as a teacher, as a professor, the best teachers are students, the best students are teachers. You know, that is the most powerful truism about this process of learning. You know, a guy like Philip Kotler, who I've connected with and interviewed, and you know, he's still learning. He's learning all the time. When you stop learning, that is when you
That's
are
it.
not alive anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that-
so that was my experience, that I was like, this is clearly where I want to spend the rest of my life.
That's one of the themes of this show is curiosity, and you mentioned being a generalist, right? In the early days of interactive, effectively by definition you had to be a generalist because you're pulling,
You have to do it all.
these different disciplines, right? We
Yeah.
have architects who became information designers, right, and things like that because they understood spatial things. So yeah, what you're talking about is a theme that we have here, that curiosity was a requirement because everything was being born. You had to figure it out. So clients said they wanted to do something, and we would say, yeah, we can do that. And we'd get back to the office, and then
We go, how the hell are we going to do that? Yeah.
I had a thought just on Monday in my NYU class, and I said, why are we always talk about breaking through the clutter, but why are we choosing to associate our brands with clutter? Why are we choosing to associate our brands with noise? Why are we trying to be, you know,
part of that noise and try and break through it with lots of money, right?
And this is obviously not a politically correct term, but at the time that, you know, David Ogilvy would have referred to, you know, the tallest midget. You don't want to be that. You don't need to be that. And so why not be the signal? Why not actually zig when the others zag? And so that's why I've always loved emerging technology and media, because you can invent the use case, like this QR code being live. That is my innovation with Rally and with a company called Bonfire. I helped develop that use case because I'm a streamer, because I'm a talk show host, and strategically what I wanted to do is say, of course you can watch it on YouTube after the fact and cut and slice and dice. But I'm also pushing off against Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Trevor Noah and trying to say, hey, why can't I reinvent the talk show in the streaming era? That's what jazzes me and energizes me. So playing with crypto and rewarding live and putting comments on, that's cool stuff. That makes me want to come to work the next day.
So Kyle, I think we need to do this as well. I think you and I need to have a You Shoulda. We've got to talk to Joe and how we can work with him and Rally and these guys. Our own.
Get a shoulda coin.
Absolutely.
You shoulda.
Yeah, we shoulda. So Joe, there you go. You're now the head of interactive strategy. What were some of the things you sort of went, wow, I can't believe we did that? And to Carl's point, what was one you went, oh, we should never have done that?
you know, the time was crazy because at the same time, you know, three things happened in my life almost at the same time. One was I was promoted, and actually, you know, at the same time, the first thing I had to do was lay off 8%. We had like 8% of the workforce. This is post.com, right? So I had to lay off, you know, a good chunk of my own team. So you can imagine how much I'm loved now by my team.
Yeah, here's a promotion. Now go fire some people.
Yeah.
In addition, I just became a dad for the first time. So I'm euphoric. I'm over the moon. I'm promoted. I have a child, you know, and that makes them hate me even more. And at the same time was 9/11. And so all of these things happen. The whole agency changes. The whole world changes. .com has become a pariah. I mean, this is an agency that was working on Office.com and Rocket.com and Cosmo and all of that's going to hell in a handbasket. And so like it was a crazy time. But I'll tell you, Doug Yeager was our creative director. One of the most brilliant, talented people I've ever worked with in my life. And the way it was structured, and that's probably mostly Doug's doing, I'll give him, you know, 104% of the credit. First of all, the interactive creative director and the interactive media director were like partners. So in a way, we would work together, and there was this
Interesting.
symbiotic relationship between media and as we know, like media can be creative and like they should be. They have to be. At the same time, what Doug had done is he'd almost like looked at digital like Bill Bernbach had with TV. And the origins of the art director and the copywriter being a partnership, being partners. What Doug did is there was an interactive copywriter and an interactive art director, and then he created what he called he created a third leg called the Wizard. And the way to describe it was the Wizard was a technologist who, let's say, had 20% creative skills, whereas the others were creative people who had 20% technology skills. And he was almost looking to reinvent what the creative team looked like. It should have become the industry standard, right? The copywriter, art director, and Wizard. But the campaign that I was the proudest of, and again, I will give, Doug all the credit for it. I probably, wrote the creative briefs on my end, but it was Absolute's first foray into digital. And the very first piece of creative was a 468 by 60 banner, and it was called Absolute Limitation. And all you saw was the bottom of the base of the bottle and the word Absolute Limitation that was half cut off so much that you could just make out that it was saying Absolute Limitation. And of course, the problem, the Absolute, like only Absolute could, was commentating on the situation, but also offering the solution being creativity. Now that, and I'll give you one other example.
Great.
Doug took the best print ads in Absolute's portfolio, like Absolute Investigation. Right. But what happened was we created the world's first truly interactive ads where the user with their mouse was part of the ad. So in the case of Absolute Investigation, your mouse was the magnifying glass. And you had to move the magnifying glass around until you uncovered the word Absolute Investigation. And that's the reveal. There was, Absolute Citron, your mouse was a peeler, and you had to peel the actual orange peel around the bottle to reveal Absolute Citron. It was amazing.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. So
and what about
funny story? So I was just going to say, Doug was an intern at agency.com, and our nickname for him was Doug the Wacky Intern. And it was wacky because he was a brilliant guy. Like he came in as an intern and just sort of blasted us with ideas and things like that. So that he went on to do such amazing stuff is not at all a surprise. Like
and now, and by the way, now, I mean, you got to have Doug on the show. I mean, what he's doing now is something even more insanely awesome.
Wow.
His wife and him and his wife, they basically are developing these branded units, these branded homes, like one home. I think one's called Cookhouse, which is all designed to be, to appeal to the gastronomic.
Oh wow!
The gastronomic.
Oh wow! What a great idea!
And it's in the Berkshires, and it has its own Instagram page, and you can see him building that. He's become unbelievable. I mean, he builds everything. And he installs all the electrical himself, and you can book through Airbnb. And I think he's working on his third home right now. It's just unbelievable because he's with his wife, he's with his son, and in a way he's opted out of the whole corporate rat race, but he's still applying his incredible creativity.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Just quickly, I know a couple more people joined. The QR code in the top, if you point your phone at that, you can get a Jaffe coin for watching this live. So just wanted to give shout out to the QR code and the Jaffe coin. So
I can see how many people are redeeming. I think people need to get up their redemptions quickly.
Yeah. Well, hey, Scott Monty's on. Hey, Scott, how are you? Hope things are well. Did you Yeah, has anybody actually bought one, Jaffe? That's what Scott wants to know. I'm trying.
Mine.
You already did.
I did.
No, I think he's asking, has anyone bought it since the show began? Now, Scott has his own coin as well, the Monty. I am a big supporter of Scott Monty and Monty as well. And
look at this.
And he's doing incredible things with his timeless and timely newsletter. Just by holding Monty, you get a premium subscription to his premium content.
Oh,
wow.
So he's also doing some really innovative stuff right now.
Wow, fantastic.
Big holder. Okay, well, I'm going to try. You guys have a conversation because I know we've only got this till 1 o'clock, so I've got to get a Jaffe coin. So, you know, Kyle, you're in charge for a moment while I figure out how to connect the wallet. So,
I'll take over. So talk to me. Sounds like the absolute stuff was amazing. You know, this was also a time where, you know, you would occasionally, you know, smack a project into the wall or, you know, do the inevitable pitch that would fail. Do you have any good nightmare stories you can share of things that didn't go the way you wanted, or nightmare clients? Anything interesting in that realm?
No, look, I'll tell you that there was another campaign we also did for the return of the Blue Light special for Kmart at Shy Day. And we actually, again, did something that had never been done before. We actually turned, because what was actually happening, the brief was the transformation of prominent, or at least the creative approach to the brief was the transformation of prominent real estate blue. Now, what's so interesting is the Hollywood sign, this, you know, the Empire State Building, all of these, but they were all retouched through print. They didn't actually turn the Hollywood sign blue. They didn't actually turn the Empire State blue. They should have. But what we did actually is we turned CBS Market Watch and Disney, and there were about 6 or 7 primary sites. What we did was we blended the background of the website the same color as the banners. And so it looked like the entire page had been transformed into the blue of the Blue Light special. And what we also did was we synchronized the horizontal and the vertical banners. So, for example, a UFO looked like it was moving across and then down, and it was all in perfect synchronicity. So I was so proud of that as well, to actually work at the time, you know, especially with publishers, you know, with church and state issues, we were able to navigate that. So a third campaign, I'm basically, you know, my answer to you is I haven't worked on a campaign that I wasn't proud of.
Oh, that's awesome.
That didn't work out well. You know, one thing we did in my Crayon days, I started a social media agency. It might have actually been the world's first social media agency. Scott Monty worked with me at Crayon. But one of the campaigns I was the proudest of was a program called Virtual Thirst for Coca-Cola in the virtual world of Second Life. How ironic it is now that we're talking about virtual worlds and metaverse. Like, I was there, we were there, we did it. You know, we did it, and we knew that I would have bet my life on the fact that this idea was going to come back. It just was ahead of its time.
It was ahead of its time.
But what we did with it, again, Virtual Thirst, the brief became, if Coca-Cola were to be in Second Life, and of course Coca-Cola should be in Second Life because Coca-Cola is the world's largest, loved, most ubiquitous brand, what would that presence be? And so what we said is, well, how would it satisfy a thirst? So what we did is we had a competition amongst developers in Second Life to develop a virtual vending machine, you know, to dispense virtual thirst, right? But the question was, what would that look like? Would it be a rectangular, you know, kind of machine? So in some cases, and what would it dispense? It could dispense optimism. It could dispense happiness. In one case, you could actually step into a snow globe, like the snow globe that they, you know, with the polar bears in Christmas time. And you could actually hang out with the polar bears, get a snapshot of yourself in the snow globe. In other cases, you could actually be you could be in this virtual machine where you'd soar up with the bubbles of the actual carbonate. I mean, it was amazing because what it did was it allowed imagination to be completely unshackled and express what the brand would look like in a world where there were no physical limitations.
Yep, and Scott Monty's point here, imagine, like, I do feel the whole NFT and blockchain world with the these virtual worlds, it now they can become true economies, right? So you can absolutely have the virtual machine. Amazing.
But imagine, trying to do that then with bandwidth issues. I remember when Flash first came out, and all of a sudden, wait, we can have like movement on the website. This is incredible. And I think one of the first ones we did was we took the Coca-Cola website that we were doing. And remember Tori Wynn and I think it was Tori and Folkert who basically had the bubbles popping on the top banner. Yep. On the hero image, and the Coke guys went ballistic. They're like, "Oh my God, you guys are geniuses! How did you do this?"
But I remember even going back to Second Life. I'll give you just two amazing use cases. One is we didn't have a website. Crayon didn't have a website. It was crayonville.com, but when you went to it, it just said "Join us in Crayonville," and it was a postcard.
Which was in Second Life.
When you clicked on it, it opened up Second Life.
Wow.
But the thing was, we had our island, our Crayonville was an island.
Yeah.
And of course it expressed the agency, our creativity, what we built, what we developed. So whenever anybody essentially visited our website, they weren't anonymous, they weren't inconspicuous, they would beam down into our office. And we always had a member of our staff, a member of our team on Second Life. So we had shifts. So you would actually be there to welcome them, like almost like a Walmart greeter, like, welcome to Walmart. How much time do you have? Can we help you? Can we show you around the island?
Wow.
So if you think about B2B and engagement and lead gen, it was just naturally like this idea of personal and personable.
Yeah.
The other thing, I mean, we did some like ridiculously cool things, which is when we launched the company, we were in an auditorium and we beamed in through Skype. So you actually had voice in Second Life for the first time.
Wow.
Matthew Ebel used to run these parties on our kind of rooftop. We had a rooftop with a swimming pool, and he was piping in music through Skype. we even had a movie premiere that was streaming in live as well. And by the way, the bandwidth was an issue, but you always figure out a way around some of these issues.
Yeah.
The early Myst, the CD-ROM game Myst, the computers couldn't do, high graphics. So they would pre-render everything except the little movie would play that big, and they figured out a way to do that creatively. I
still have that CD. I've got to go find it now.
Yeah, Myst was too difficult for me. I wasn't.
Was it?
that was the first world I felt like I truly immersed myself in.
Yeah, I loved it.
For Urban Desires, we interviewed Rand and Robin Miller, who did that. That was fascinating. So let's shift gears. So you're in this sort of world of interactive. At some point, you get out of it, and talk to us about what you learned from those early days, what you carried forward, what you've left behind. Just talk to us about the evolution of how you got from then to where you are now.
Well, ironically, my next company was called Evolution, and
nice.
With a vision of building a bridge between Madison Avenue and Mountain View.
Okay.
What I've always done is, I've always loved the quote, right? There are those who see things and ask why, and then those who see things that could be and ask why not. And so, like, my whole life, when I look back, I realized that I would embrace something where no one is. And when everyone else embraces it, I get bored and I move on.
And you move on.
Because that first mover advantage is gone.
Yeah.
And so, at the time I was saying, well, where's the growth right now? Is the growth in digital? Is the growth in social media? Or is everyone playing there? And so I looked around and I said, like, which companies are growing right now? Mm-hmm. It's the startups. Mm-hmm. And which companies are stagnant and declining? It's the corporates. And so I said, well, what if, and so our pitch was, what if Kodak acquired Instagram? What if Marriott had started Airbnb?
Airbnb, yeah.
And so all of these what ifs that you actually realize, and there was the example I always use was there was an app called RunP. Now, RunP would tell you exactly when in the movie you could run and pee. In other words, the boring parts of the movie.
Yeah.
So the question is, well, what if Mirbetrek, which is an overactive bladder syndrome drug, would buy run pee, but it didn't have to be a drug. It could be Coca-Cola saying, "Hey, listen, get the big gulp or whatever. Just don't tell Bloomberg." But like you won't miss the good parts of the movie. Or it could have been any entertainment brand saying, "We want you to enjoy the movie, and you won't miss the good parts of the movie as well." And so the whole idea is, if it is true that most startups are really building themselves to get big fast and be acquired by another company, then why not just reverse engineer the startup from the brand backwards?
Wow.
And again, there was a bold vision and a difficult vision to sell through, and it was difficult to sell through.
Yep.
So, I would say that I've got a very, very simple outlook that I've used. I've written about it in my books, and it is universally applicable. There is nothing that this framework doesn't apply to. And trust me when I say it is the most simple thing in the world. It's a 2x2 matrix, and it basically says it's old, new, accept, reject, all right? And all we're saying is reject the worst of the old and keep or maintain the best of the old, embrace the best of the new, and reject or ignore the worst of the new.
Oh, interesting.
So what you learn how to do is to say, of course, there are fundamentals and universal truths and best practices associated with marketing at its core that you should never, ever discard.
Right.
You should always keep close. But there's also a lot of crap that you need to say, your day has come, your day is done, time to move on, time of death. At the same time, a lot of the new stuff is distraction and bells and whistles and smoke and mirrors and, and that stuff is just pulling us off course. But there's some incredible things that we should adopt and we should integrate, and we shouldn't just test and learn. I hate test and learn, but sometimes we do need to be able to double down, and scale with success. And so for me, I almost feel just like my books. I describe each book as another chapter of a bigger book. So it's never about what I wrote was wrong and now it's never, here's what's cool now. It's all about how can we take the learning, how can we take the flip funnel, how can we take some of these insights and evolve the thinking and build on top of an existing foundation. And that's how I've built my entire career.
So before you go on, Kyle, because there's a couple of things on there that Joe was saying that are interesting. But before we do that, you do realize that this is the first time we have royalty on our show with Jaffe, the world famous, but we've got Armano and Monty on the same channel at the same time.
Wow.
So we've got 3 royalty folks.
The world is exploding.
We finally have made it, Kyle.
Jaffe is the cloak of social tokens. I like it.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I like it. And Armano has a coin as well.
Yeah.
What are we doing, Ritesh?
I know. This is why I said we have royalty on this show for the first time.
I know this is brilliant.
But going back to some of the statements, there is a lot of stuff going on where the word disruption appears a lot, as opposed to evolution or growth or changing. And I think sometimes we get so hooked up on the disruption piece that we forget that perhaps if we just do this differently or do this with new things, new technologies or whatever. This conversation I had yesterday with a pharma company, and they were like, what the heck is the metaverse and why should I care?
Right.
And, it was the same sort of conversation. It's okay, just be curious, go look at it, and you'll figure out that if you do something differently with that in your day to day, you may actually change the way you market something or brand something, right?
Brilliant.
I like that too. I'm just looking at the comments as well, and
I know.
I see there's now an Monty coin.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true. I mean, just being able to, and of course, you'll notice I use the phrase use case.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to do that is to say, how is this relevant for me? How is this relevant for my brand? How is this relevant for our objectives? And the answer may be it isn't. But the answer may be it absolutely is. And I struggle. Actually, I say I struggle, but I actually had an epiphany which is why do people like myself and and Scott and David, why are we still even in business? Why hasn't everyone just figured it out already? Like the stupid bowl. I mean, I call it the stupid bowl, the Super Bowl. Why do we not just figure out how to nail this unbelievable opportunity to get in front of 120 million plus consumers? And so what I realized is it's because there is no continuity in senior positions in corporate America. And so what happens is, the reason why it's Groundhog Day is that people retire, they get whacked, they get rotated, and so a new wave comes in, and they all make the same damn mistakes that the generation before them made, and either they're too young and they don't have the wisdom and experience, and they're just tactics in search of strategy, or they resist us to change. And so until
I think there's a third, Joe, which is they don't know. I tell this story to Kyle all the time, and there have been moments in time at Ogilvy before I left, maybe 3 years in and another 5 years in, where somebody is talking about this amazing user interface they want to do, and I whip out the movie of an interface we created at agency.com in 1996 for the city of San Antonio, using Flash. And I show it to them. I mean, what do you think about this? And they all go, "Whoa, that's amazing!" I'm like, "Yeah, we did that in 1996, right?"
Yeah.
So I think part of it is they don't know.
What's old is new again, on some level.
Yeah.
But it's sad because it's sad because what these organizations have not done is they haven't institutionalized intelligence and experience. And I don't want to use the word best practices, but just the ability to create legacy. It's hypocritical because brands are meant to be the quintessential legacy, in terms of building something that can last. And that's why, and that's why, like, honestly, why I wrote Built to Suck, because at this point I was like, you know what? I tried with life after the 30-second spot and joined the conversation and flipped the funnel and zero. You all suck, basically. Like I'm giving up on the corporation because I actually think the business model of big business is broken.
But you guys are all, and but I look at what Scott just put in with the timeless. I read that, and what David's doing now with what he's got going, taking all of that experience. But David, I hate to tell you, metal will never be good. It's always good. I don't know about metal, and heavy metal particularly. Anyway, but I think yourself, Scott, David, there's a plethora of others who are still continuing, and to your point, are still being asked about how do we do this and how do you do it. But I do fear that sometimes I think in collecting the knowledge, and we had David on this show a couple of months ago, there's one line that comes through all the way, which is curiosity. Mm-hmm. Go figure it out. Go learn. Go immerse. What I find today sometimes is it is from a book, or I saw the YouTube video and I think I can do it, as opposed to
everyone else is, right?
Yeah, right. So how do you get that going, Joe, in the work that you're now starting to embark on and teaching? Are you going to focus on some of those things, or do you agree with that?
I mean, I completely agree with the power of and the importance of curiosity. There are so many superpowers. Look, when I became a talk show host, first calling it Corona TV, and now Joseph Jaffe is not famous. I've had the life's honor of interviewing now 277 different people, and building up a rapport and a repertoire of what I call superpowers.
Yeah.
Resilience, tenacity, empathy, generosity, curiosity. These are all superpowers of what the new marketing executive should embody. Quite frankly, anyone in business should embody. And curiosity is just beyond. I mean, it is the ability to, and the importance. I had Warren Berger wrote, another beautiful question, the book of beautiful questions. The power of asking questions, and sometimes the best thing to do is to answer a question with another question. Continue that path, that discovery, as well. It's. I mean, we know all the ironies of clients that come and say, We want a big idea, something that's never been done before,
Right.
something that's,
But
at the same time, we need research and data and analytics.
And show us who you've done it for before. I'm like,
exactly.
then it's not innovative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And, one of the things I always said, even, throughout my entrepreneurial career, is you want to be able to make mistakes. But what I call the good kind of mistakes, the good kinds of them. What is a good mistake? It's a mistake you learn from. It's a mistake you make before your competitors do.
That's
and
great.
It's a mistake when the perceived, not even perceived risk, when the actual cost or opportunity cost is so low that you can afford to make the mistake. So it's almost like we've got to get into a frame of mind where we almost want to be able to make mistakes, because we're not going to be perfect. We're going to stumble. But we will be forgiven if we are early enough, and if our intention is to like step into the world. Like we saw this, a microcosm of the world when brands would come into Second Life, and they were either seen as, explorers or exploiters. They either came in to try and kind of carpet bomb the place and take advantage, exploit the locals, or they would come in. That's exactly why we as residents made sure that the program we did, we had an advisory council, and it was rewarding actual members of this metaverse, if you will, with the actual, keys to the campaign in the kingdom.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's happening right now with the NFT world. You've got all these NFTs, and the ones that have active communities where you've got an engaged community and a team that's supporting them, and there's actually passion for supporting that team. Those are the projects that are doing well, and it's exactly what you're talking about.
So, Kyle, I think one of the things we do need to do, I'll put it on my list, is we've got to get Scott Monty on now. We've had Armano, we've had Jaffe, we've got to get the third Royal on the show, so we'll have to send him a note and get one of his points.
I think it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
I wholly endorse that. And you must let me know when he's on so that I can kibitz in the background as well.
Absolutely.
And heckle him. One thing just lighthearted that I'll share with you, your new book, Built to Suck. The original corporate motto of agency.com was figure out what sucks, don't do it.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was exactly sort of the definition you were talking about of what's a good mistake, right? Explore, do it, and just sort of understand what's not working and do the other thing. And the other thing that was something that we talked about in the early days of agency.com that I've carried forward is asking simple questions like why, right? I want a website, I want an NFT, I want a coin. Okay, why? Right? Getting back to that, which comes to your planning background, right? The strategy, like what are you trying to accomplish, right? Why be in the metaverse? I don't know. Do you want people's attention? They're putting all their attention over here. Oh, I want their attention, right? The connecting the why to the tactic is ultimately the thing that frees you from the noise is what our experience was.
I'll give you also a very simple, again, like a 2x2 matrix that we use when evaluating pilot programs when I was at Evolution. But it's actually a path for brands to move through. It looks like almost like an N. But the first one was, and it was simple. It was the big L, the big loss, the small W, and the big W. And so the first one was the big L, and we called that discontinue. It actually was a mistake. There was a spelling error when we put it together in the first matrix. It was obviously meant to be discontinue, but we're like, no, we're keeping it because you are getting a discount as opposed to paying a premium or getting in early and making the mistake. So discontinue was for the big L, right? Pivot was for the small L. Rinse and repeat was for the small W, and scale with success was for the big W.
Oh, that's great.
And so there's a very simple strategic framework to apply for this idea of piloting and experimenting and testing and learning.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, this was amazing.
Absolutely,
thank you so much. We could go on for another hour, I think, but We just can't.
We could, but then, would Scott tire of us though?
No, he would charge us for listening to us.
Well, and
that would be the thing.
The QR code would expire, so
we
have to pull that down.
It's expiring in about 45 seconds.
Yeah,
there
if you haven't pointed your phone at the QR code, do it now. Get yourself a Jaffe coin. And Joe, thank you so much for being here and being so generous with your flexibility for the show, for one thing, because I know you've got a show at the exact same time. So really appreciate that.
I moved the reunion show to 3 p.m. today.
Oh, so kind of you. Thank you so much. And Scott and David, thank you so much for tuning in and throwing the tomatoes at Joe. It was appreciated.
Terrific. All right.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.